All right, so just like a quick update. We'll talk about this more tomorrow, I think, because it's not really backend related so much, but the boot camp for next week, not next week, but in 2 weeks, got a lot of interest. So
Wow.
David, Bryce, and I started working on like the structure and outline for what we'll cover in the class a little bit more. I'm hoping to get some volunteers from all of you for helping run some of the sessions. And now that I think we've fleshed it out, I think it will be relatively straightforward to figure out what that is. And we'll talk about that more tomorrow. Lily, I don't know if you had any ideas about if you wanted to participate in that. Sounds like we're going to be, what did David say the days were? Wednesday and Thursday mornings?
That's where that thing was.
Yes, I believe it was Wednesday and Thursday morning between like 11 and 1.
Okay.
Is when the boot camp is?
Or yeah, when we're considering
We're not
I don't think
both of those days, but we'll do one of them. But apparently those are the times that came back from Louisiana, which are our only confirmed partners that really need to be at the boot camp. And we're going to try to choose which of those dates and times to use based on polling the rest of our potential folks.
Okay. Are folks from Illinois? I should know that one. Like who's the TIG grant and stuff?
I'm hoping they'll be able to join as well. Yeah.
It's the Illinois folks, yeah?
Yeah. They have their own TIG grant. They're not part of our grant in any way yet right now, and possibly they will become so.
Okay.
But that's not something we know yet. Whereas at Louisiana, I think we're working on signing something, but they've agreed to do the project basically.
Sure. What are the blue dots? New.
Oh, in the document. Yeah, from the last time you looked at it, it shows you from your perspective what's changed. The blue dots. They're kind of a nice feature. Okay, so that's that piece. Definitely look at it, think over if there's something you want to participate in or want to help with. I think a big thing is I sent out the sign up form. If anyone wants to do that, maybe I'll ask that tomorrow. If not, then I might just do that because it's not a long task and it needs to get done quickly. I think the next place for us to start is just treat this as a stand-up. Given that structure of like, hey, we have a bunch of people coming in, they're going to mostly not know DocAssemble at all yet, actually. Most people who were interested in joining our bootcamp.
Do they know coding?
They might have experience with a different form platform. So they might have experience with Hot Docs or A2J Author.
Either of those allow
has some coding concepts, but yeah, they're all menu driven.
So
may or might not have used.
So not a programming language, not previous experience with a programming language, correct?
I think that's a question we can ask people when they sign up to get a good sense. And some people might just be like, I'm going to listen in and absorb this because it's a free thing I can participate in without leaving my house. And we don't have to cater towards that group because our purpose is to help people be ready to stand up their own copy of this basically in their own state. That's our overall goal.
Sure.
And then thinking about the needs of the explicit partners we have that we want to be able. So like Louisiana, they've done no DocAssemble work before. We will help them get up to speed. And so whatever we're doing to help them get up to speed will hopefully get some other people up to speed too.
Okay. Oh, this document is reminding me before I forget. I was thinking we could have a page with using the wizards the constants to generate what the reserved words are.
Yes, that was the reason for that design. But yeah, we do need an issue related to it. And
I mean because the documentation of like what are reserved words, that could be a really fast way to automate what reserved words are. to document, automatically document what reserved words the wizard handles. Like just
Now
those ones, it doesn't cover everything. Say again?
Now I'm very confused. What are,
So one of the pieces of documentation is about the wizard, right? Is about reserved words in PDFs and docx's, right? Well, not docx's, but PDFs.
I know I understand that part. I'm not sure what you're proposing we do and how it's related to the second part, because I thought it was something really different. I thought you
Okay.
said you wanted to create a page in the wizard where you can customize reserved words.
No, not customize. So this is us building a page, a DocAssemble interview page that just prints out the reserved words in the global constants. So there is a direct reference of everything that is currently supported.
Okay. So instead of creating a documentation page, just have a dynamic screen that shows the reserved words.
I'm not sure instead of, but definitely in addition to.
Okay.
Because that
Right.
will stay much more up to date than whatever documentation we write.
All right. Let's create that.
And yeah, well, that's okay. I'll comment on it. That's good.
Okay, this that reminded me of something that was not what you were saying, which
All right, perfect.
which is what I thought you were saying. That's why I was confused.
Okay.
I had started working on this, but I don't think there's an issue for it. There might be. Maybe someone knows the issue. But let me actually look before I start creating my own. This feels like our work for the next 2 weeks, though. So hopefully everyone agrees, like this is where we should focus. We can bring up other stand-up questions that people have too. But, all right. The point is to allow people to add their own people. I'm trying to think of the right keyword.
Individuals, maybe?
It might be tied to this one. No, it's not really. Okay. We don't have an issue for it right now.
Perfect.
But let's. And I don't know what playground I have it in. I had started working on this code in December to do this, and I don't know the status of it. But it's just supposed to scan the list of fields the person used, see if they look like they are trying to use it as a person, and allow them to say, yep, that's a person. And then it will get the attributes of that will be handled just like other attributes for a person.
Do we want to put milestones on these items?
The other one just feels like a future one. I mean, it's like a standalone thing that doesn't intersect with any code. So it could even be, it could be on the documentation repository just as well. So I'll let you decide that one. But I think I'd like this to be by the bootcamp. Sounds like a good fit to me, because if we're going to tell people take this and use it in your own jurisdiction, but you only can use the field names that we came up with for the forms that we're automating in our jurisdiction, that's like the first thing people are going to want to be able to do is use their own names for objects. So it feels urgent for that reason.
All right.
Now, did you want to have an interface where people could upload their own set of reserved keywords? Or, I mean, that's what I thought you were saying. I was like, oh, well, that ties into this idea of people names.
Yeah, I mean, that's a separate issue. If you want, I can make that issue.
Okay. That feels like a fine first way to handle that. It's like a little clunky for the long term. We talked about it before.
I mean, do you want to just make something that describes more fully what the long-term goal is, and we can just work towards that if it's a future goal?
Well, I'm not 100% sure the right interface, but we can make the issue as like, hey, have some way to allow people to customize the fields that are reserved more granular way than forking our repository.
I'm going to make that a future. That's a future one as well.
Yeah, that's fine for future, I think. It'll be, I don't see that happening in the next 2 weeks. So, I mean, it could if it's just like a big old text field where you just do new line break between each field you want to have handled.
I mean, it could also be a file with a new line break in between fields, but yeah. Right?
There's obviously a lot of ways to implement it. I'm just thinking of the ways that might be fastest. If you're setting a file, then it might make sense to fork it, but I'm not sure.
Okay. I'm just double checking. We don't want to put it in one of the lawyering in the age of smart machines or any of the other ones, correct? Just future. It's lower priority than those, correct?
Well, I mean, even though we gave dates to those milestones, like no, I don't think it fits for that. And it's not going to be relevant to my class, so we don't need to go there.
Okay, perfect.
For now, it's fine.
Perfect.
All right, so we have this one. I saw you put a pull request in for this, right?
Yep.
The one question that I had when I was talking with Bryce this morning about it is, do we have to make sure that mail address doesn't get the wrong part cut off, you know?
Oh.
You know what I mean? Did you test that with your test cases already?
I mean,
if I gave enough of a description, it sounds like it made sense.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the test cases should test that, and it came out all right. Like the expected value was mail addresses or mail address, and that's what it came out as. So
okay,
it passes. Like I added it to the test cases.
Okay.
So it did not fail.
All right, then I will try to review that today, and I guess I can come up with a manual test to just double check that too. Okay, so that we are done with our milestone for today, which is congratulations, everybody. That's great work. We had a 1 week milestone and we met it. That's really good.
Last.
Now let's see if we can meet our 2 week milestone.
Yeah. Do we want to?
10.
Yeah, that looks fun. 0% complete. Perfect. So do we want to assess whether, like, is this the full agenda for today, the assembly line wizard, or do we want to see if there are other items people want to bring up or that kind of thing?
I think you missed when I said that exact thing.
Oh, sorry. I'm very sorry.
It's okay.
Carry on. Yeah.
Let's say, let's just do this for now. And I mean, I can do a quick poll now. Does anyone have anything else that feels like an urgent agenda item for us to talk about here? That's not the wizard.
Not that I can
Michelle, are you
remember.
having any blockers on the documentation front where like maybe that should be a code backend change rather than documenting?
No, but I am having like the email thing and getting app property and like sorting it all out. I don't know. It's going to take me a while. So if someone wants to jump on with me or just let me take a while, that's either one of those is fine.
Can you tell me what the email property
So
is?
for the download table page.
Oh, okay.
For AL documents.
Okay, so that's not about the documentation. It's about our milestones. So let's jump back
Yeah.
in. All right. I think that is in our milestone for the next release. If it's not, let's move it in that milestone.
Well, it's not really a Weaver thing. It's more
Oh.
of a assembly line thing.
Okay, well, let's look at that because there is definitely overlap. Good point. And look at those issues too, and we should try to make some milestones there. All right, so what is Firefox doing with open tabs? It switches if you have it open in a different window, it just switches to that instead.
Excuse me.
All right, finally it's laid out the way I wanted to. Okay. So I'm going to make an issue here, which is use the email. Maybe again, like I feel like I already had this issue, but
We can search for email.
button to download screen. And then here's the issue that's tied to it.
To download the screen or in the download screen or what? Like, I'm just making sure we're both talking about the same thing. Add IC, okay.
I think you do have this one. I think it's 74.
Yeah, I think there's a
Add send email button to placeholder download screen.
It's issue number 4.
74.
Oh, 74. Okay.
Just sent the link in the Zoom chat.
Great. All right. And is it already in the right milestone?
It is in lawyering in the age of smart machines or smart machines. So we probably
Okay,
would
so
have
we should
bumped it.
move it, I guess, to that.
Oh, yeah.
All right. I would really like to move that to that. Well, actually, it doesn't matter if it doesn't really. I take that back. We can have people add a button whenever it's ready. That's not really the highest priority issue. We should think about the ones that are like, this will be wrong until you've redone your wizard interview. But we can talk about it. So it's not a blocker and we can make progress on it though. But it's probably doesn't put milestones in. Okay.
Sure. I think the court thing might be did we already give it? I can't tell which one is which anymore. But, oh, I see, that's the milestones. I thought that was a list of issues and it had no milestones. I was like, we didn't give something a milestone? When did that happen?
This is just our milestone.
Okay.
So I guess we just want to do a little triage and figure out, can we assign people to the issue? Are they really priorities? This does feel like important to have done to me, I think, right?
Yeah, that seems pretty important.
So how do we get that without creating a huge infrastructure for court that we haven't even started working on yet? Do you have any ideas?
I mean, we could, like, I don't know what the setup is for the requirements right now in AssemblyLine. It would involve changing the requirements in AssemblyLine for like when our address is required and when we need to use a list of courts. Right now, it's like part of the required stuff.
So the main thing is on the front screen, we have like assign a court to this form. And the question is, that's one thing. And we don't want to have someone be required to only see a list of Massachusetts courts if their form is a court form for a different state.
They could just put in, like write in their own court designation.
Okay.
But I think that list is only useful because it gives you access to a list of actual courts. Like it lets you access a list of data somewhere, like an
Yeah,
object.
because like isn't like
So yeah,
it's
sorry,
like
go ahead,
all
Bryce.
no, I was just elaborating on what you said of like isn't just like probate courts is listed in MA, or not, like MA courts as like the list of all the probate courts, right? Or it gets you like using that key somewhere gets you all the courts you need. So
If it's not going to get you a courts list, is it really useful? I think is what we're kind of asking.
Well, let's open the question up a little bit and think of the framing as, can you use this information once it's gone through the wizard, even if we don't have it ready on the back end? Or does it require rerunning it through the wizard? And I think if we put in that placeholder information in the form, it gets used in the generated document, and it gets linked at runtime to an object that's available in the package, right? So I do think it's okay for us to just let the free text field be a solution.
Sure.
Um,
It could also be a completable combo box, so that we could still list the mass access ones if we want in there, or it can be kind of, I don't know, expanded in some way. The list in there could be in generator constants, so that could be something people could edit themselves.
okay, so let's do
So
this.
can I ask a question? How is this? Okay, let's see. You give me a list of chords. I pick up one or two. How are those fields used in the runtime?
They get used on the court selector screen and in a little piece of code that gives you a list of matching courts. So it's those two places it's used to help you only get shown the relevant courts to that type of form.
That's a good question. Should it be optional? Because if you don't have a list of ports,
Right,
if
it
you
can
don't
just be
need
none
to
of
list
the
ports.
above, then you don't have chords. So that's number one. But number two, I'm still trying to, okay, I understand that in the Weaver stage, I have seen a list of court names. Now, suppose I pick one. So that court name gets into my interview file. When I go to my own interview and run it through the assembly line, how is that field, that court name get used for my interview?
So it gets into, let's see if we can run a quick form through the wizard to see. I'll show you. I just
I
added
could
another.
not get to the list page. It bugged me so much earlier today.
What's
For
that?
some reason, it wasn't in my dropdown. The interviews list page wasn't in my dropdown.
On the dev server?
Yeah.
I just put it in there today. It wasn't on there before. That's why.
Oh,
It's never been on there.
okay. I think I hallucinated then. All right. Sounds
I
good.
just realized like we should have that there before people started working on anything else. So
Yes.
let's choose a couple courts. This is a form that doesn't have anything in it.
It's also linked on the GitHub page, by the way, the repo, the first repo page. There's a link.
Okay. So it goes into this data structure here.
Right,
That's the allowed courts. So
now after you load this one into your own project and run it through, how is this get used?
And let's go, we can jump to that part of the code if you want. So let's see. Put it in VS Code, so we'll just be easier.
sorry, okay, I found a link. That's the actual line. That I think it's probably used in a few other places too. No, it's the only place it's used in basic questions. Is I just sent a link to the Zoom chat. That is like whenever it starts searching for courts, it uses it like narrows it down by that. And that specifically all courts is just like an MA courts. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's just like an MA courts object. That is how
That has-
MA works how MA courts, however that works.
It has those as keys.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so when you load MA courts, each court has an associated department.
So in other words, if you allow people give their own names, when you do this search, you will not be able to find a match. Is that right?
We will need to eventually create some version of the MA courts repository, or they will need to for their own state. That's no question. So my question is like for our milestone, we're like, hey, we want people to be able to run code and have it still not be broken in a few weeks. Can they do that later? And I think the answer is yes. Like if they created their data structure, first of all, just like having this and seeing where the court names go, they can edit that and change the wording, right? Because they'll see, oh, that's where it goes. There's two, and they have a comma between them. And then they'll have to implement their own MA courts at some point. What I did for now is just make this in this file. It's a DA empty object. It's not actually a real courts object because DA, but we'll need some generic version of it at some point.
Nice.
Yeah, and I have actually, that's a really good point because I have, let's link that wizard, that issue. That's in here, I think. Yeah. So this doesn't actually, I mean, this actually is a blocker on this package, which should get done too. The big thing is I want to be able to include the cover page. I don't know how important it is though. It might not be that important. I mean, it'd be nice to have an example of like, hey, and then you click the button, it sends it to somebody. But that doesn't seem like we need to have that ready by the 15th. Which, by the way, is not the 15th because we've already established it's either Wednesday or Thursday. So it's going to be either the 17th. So we get 2 extra days, one of which is on Monday.
wow. I was gonna say, yeah. Let's give ourselves those 2 days on the calendar.
So I feel like that's a good solution. Let's go with these 2 changes. So first, moving the current list of courts into generator constants, and then second, give people a place to enter, to type like line by line a list of courts. We can't use a combo box, Michelle, because a combo box only lets you choose 1 item at a time. There's no input.
Oh, dang it.
Assemble yet. I wish there were. It would be really helpful.
Would this be a like list collect page maybe?
But then you
Oh,
can take it
it's
onto
so-
its own page.
So gross, yeah.
So, yeah.
Because if they're gonna list them, I guess they could list them. They could write a list of comma separated values.
Yeah, I think that works. I think maybe it's easier for people to understand when it's like a new line for each court, and that's just as good for us to parse.
Can we not like add the list collect stuff functionality on the same screen?
You can't. It's not-
No.
Yeah, that's dumb.
Nice thought, Bryce. Though plenty of other great minds have had similar.
Fair.
I actually have an issue to create this input on docassemble, which I think Jonathan's ignoring.
That's
It's a
great.
long time ago now.
So it would be a text area is what you're saying. I didn't understand that to begin with.
I think that's a good MVP because
Okay.
again, we're trying to just like have people generate code that's functional for their state. If there's a little extra step that we solve with documentation, I think that's okay.
Okay, I'm just gonna add a note for an idea, just to let you know. It's very basic.
This is what I wanted to have, and I'll show you. It might not even be hard to integrate it.
Where's that issue?
I just linked it.
Okay. No, I'm trying to find 132. Okay.
See, like this, like it collects as you go, and then you can hit the X to remove it. That to me just is like really nice and kind of
Yeah.
So I wish we had that, but we don't. So
Oh,
okay.
what is, oh, this is something else?
This is not docassemble. This is just an example of an input that I think would work for us.
Okay.
That is not implemented in docassemble. But I think the first way to do it is to just use a text input in area. Oh, okay, go back to our milestone. Is there someone, maybe I'll work on this one. Unless someone else wants to. I think it's pretty straightforward. I think anyone could work on it.
Yeah, I was gonna say after talking about it, I sort of feel like I have a good enough understanding. I can take a stab at it.
Okay. I'm gonna take this out of our milestone, if that's okay, Michelle, just because
Take which?
it's just a code cleanup issue. I think it's a good idea. I mean, unless you just want to do it, it'll be like a 2-minute fix. But
I do not remember writing that. Sure, I mean, give it a shot. But we don't have tests, so I'd say just put it in future.
okay.
Then we can just do it when we have more tests.
Hey, we removed an issue. The feedback form, do you feel like you have the scope of that one, Michelle? Do you want me to do it? I mean, I've done it on a couple of packages now, so it wouldn't take me very long. It seems like a fine idea.
I don't know how to do it. I'd love to learn how to do it so I can try and implement the same thing that you've implemented in, like, it's in Mate and something else as well. You just have that package, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like putting the shortcut on a place on each screen. There's not a lot of, and then it's just.
Oh, it's not just in undertext, in the like interview
Yeah.
wide undertext?
That's where I put it, yeah. It's not really a very hard task. But
Okay.
I'm happy to do it because it's so short. Maybe you could look at it and see it as a model.
Sure,
don't know.
I'll look at the PR and then I'll get to see what it looks like.
Okay. I'm fine with doing that. And the only thing is I want to say, like, caution, like, we probably won't do any of the things people suggest for quite a while, but it can't hurt to put the form in there anyway. This will be a chance for a bunch of people to use it and for us to get feedback from them. So we should take advantage of that.
We should, yeah, we should capture it while we can. That's my thought. So.
The API and check to see if any variables the interview needs to define should be added to the wizard. Very general one.
It is.
And we did close one of these already. I'm going to close this issue for now. And
Can you
let's
comment just as to the rationale and then, yeah. Makes sense. That's great. Thank you.
if people think of other, as they're reading the code, like, hey, this should be in the wizard, and it's a small thing, maybe we can do it by the 17th. Feel free to open issues and put it on this milestone.
I'm not sure if this fits into that, so I just want to check. I don't know how controversial it is, but moving users and other parties into the wizard as opposed to as objects to instantiate them, as opposed to having it in AssemblyLine.
Yeah, so I think you had that idea, and I think that's a good one. And I think it's tied to this, limiting the number of people
Okay.
in the list, and it's tied to letting people add their own list of names of people.
Okay,
So we'll need to do it to implement those two ideas.
sure.
I don't know if it needs its own issue though, but
Well, I mean, then it's really well circumscribed, you know, then it's done. Like you can just mark it as done and move on with life. But I can make that issue if you want, or let me know and I'll,
sure, go ahead and make it. It's not controversial. I mean, I think that's a good idea.
okay.
Like it's creating an objects block doesn't interfere with. I mean, the only thing is what we see at one point we changed the object type, but that's not really a big deal. You just make a very small shim for something like that.
Okay. All right, if you
Go
want
ahead.
to add that detail, yep, I'm making that.
I don't see default limit birth dates to dates in the past as being possible anymore because we have because the birth date field doesn't allow you to change the validation dynamically.
I am not hearing default limit birth date to dates in the past.
I guess we could have that in the JavaScript validation code. It always says, okay, it's a birth date, so it happened before today.
Yeah, you can. I mean, it'd be great if it like had a like maximum, right? Like there was a validation for maximum and we may be able to create that. But in the meantime, it can just be a hard-coded thing. Am I making sense?
Yeah, you are. And I also realized this doesn't really belong on this repository. It belongs on the AssemblyLine repository. That's where is the birth date? It's in the
It's in the toolbox.
Toolbox, actually. Okay. I mean, this reminds me we should allow people to choose birth date as a type of field.
Do you think this is the kind
That's
of
another issue somewhere, I think.
There is one already for that?
At least I've seen it.
Okay.
I'll try and find it.
Is that one that needs to be done by next week, or the birth date to only
I don't
be
see
the
that
past?
as being a priority. You want to move it to future?
Future, or to whatever the next milestone is. Just if we're trying to narrow down what we're working on.
So I think of like the milestone as being feature oriented more than timeline based.
Sure.
So I'm not
sounds
sure
great.
I would need that for my students' forms that they're going to work on either. So I think I'm okay with putting that in future.
Also, I was going to say, I think I was incorrect, and I think I was remembering reading this issue that says that we need to add a birthday type to the wizard. That's distinct.
I would
Okay.
totally understand that. Yeah.
We don't have, if someone wants to create that issue, that is not a now thing, it's a future thing. So
Is moving users and other parties, is that a next week issue? Or what's the milestone for that?
I like that as being a priority. You make your own issue for that. Can you link it to those?
I
other
did. It's 165.
163 and 88 should be linked to that issue.
163 and 88. Okay.
I'm going to assign myself to this limiting people because I started working on it and I think it might be there.
Okay.
And similarly,
could someone tell me what the numbers were again?
163 and 88.
All right, I tried 88. That's okay. I'll see. Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but
Bryce, you were looking at some stuff to improve the review screen. Do you want to work on this very small issue? Well, I mean, it might require more work, but I kind of think we might have to come up with a list of hard-coded rules for things we want to do in the review screen. Or generate review screen templates that get pulled in dynamically. It's like, it's going to have to go one of those two ways.
Mhm. Yeah, I'd be fine with looking at it though.
Okay. It can be a very, very small solution that is like not the optimal one yet. And it just solves this, closes this issue. I don't want to remove it because actually it is kind of confusing to let people edit things like that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Okay.
I mean, the difference should be, I mean, the variable that should be editable is what chord it is. Like we should just change what is edited, not that it appears on the editing screen. Like you should still be able to edit the chord that you chose.
Yeah, but just not like separately. Like essentially like being able to, I think it's just a matter of like what variable it's talking about sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Exactly.
I remember looking at some of this stuff though, so I can.
And sometimes it's like there's 5 parts, 5 different fields on a screen, and then you can edit each of them separately, but you really shouldn't.
Yeah.
So actually we had a different solution to that, which was just like creating a per question edit button rather than a per field edit button. And that might be less confusing for people anyway, because the reality is like you don't, you're going to think you have to click on each of those edit buttons, but you don't. You click on one of them, you change everything on the screen, then you go back to the screen.
Mm-hmm. And that does seem like
I
the
like
easier
that.
way to think about it. I was at least going to try and like change it so like at least because sometimes you have like sub variables that are changed, like they have like there's like an edit button next to like first name and last name and stuff like that. But I think that's the next step. I feel is like it just goes over the middle step of like just being everything on a single questions page.
But what it doesn't handle though is the built-in fields, so we have to still think about those different way, but explicitly. So like there might be one more data structure that we like, okay, here's what you do to trigger editing this variable, and then group them so there's no duplicates. And I don't know, this is what I'm thinking for a long-term thing, but I'm also realizing like the bigger the scope gets, the harder it is to meet the milestones. So I'm okay with doing it in 2 steps.
I think the built-in fields, we can probably just decide what we want for them for now if we don't want to make an integrated thing. And for the other ones, you can just list the fields, but only have one variable that is edited for that screen. So like first name, would appear as, I mean, this is dumb, but like if you had first name, middle name, last name, those could all be listed separately, but they would all edit the same variable.
I think you're saying what we were saying, Michelle, which is to like group it by question screen rather than by field.
I'm just saying it could be easy. Never mind. I'll go into it some other time. It's okay. It might be what you said, so we can. Sorry.
Okay. No, well, check in with Bryce. Put in some thoughts on the comment on the issue if you had some idea.
Sure.
Okay. Making the logic block the only mandatory block. Michelle and I commented on this thread. Oh, this is a separate issue that's the same thing. It's a duplicate of this. What's the thread we were just talking about this morning?
I can look in my notifications.
I'm going to close this one.
I think it's called discussion. It's 153, I think. Sorry. 100.
No, go ahead.
Yeah,
if you found it, that's great. I just link the issue when you close it. It's.
I can do it after I close it too.
Yes. All right, there we go. Do it after. It's 153. That's good. I don't know.
I never know where to mark the duplicate, but it doesn't really matter. So I guess it's on both once you do it on one.
Yeah.
All right. So maybe no one else cares about that. I think that was a choice that we just made really early on. Did you change the milestone for that, Bryce? Or do you mind if you have it open?
I have it open.
The issue there is right now we have a mandatory download screen instead of a mandatory interview order block, which isn't like how I teach it for anything people write from scratch. I guess you know the issue, Bryce. Lily, do you have any thoughts on it, or do you want us to explain the idea more? It sounded like, Michelle, you and I agreed. I don't know, Bryce, if you had any thoughts on it.
I don't have any thoughts. I feel like this is one of those things that I'm sort of relying on you guys having a lot more DocAssemble institutional knowledge and just like what works better, because it's just a little too open. And so I'm not sure like which way to lean towards a mandatory list or a like single mandatory block at the very end. Like I'm just not really sure which ends up being easier to work with, because I don't have enough experience, I feel, with DocAssemble in general. But
Okay.
Sure.
All right. So
I mean, I can, you know, if it would help to explain the thinking there, but I think it's written
laid
out.
out.
So yeah.
yeah.
We tried it one way. Yeah, I still feel like it's a little awkward every time I see it. I get the idea of why we did it that way, and I feel like this solution, which we laid out here and towards the bottom of the thread,
I like that much better.
that's better than what we have now. Okay. Who would like to work on this?
I can probably do it. It's super easy.
We have to figure out like what the name is for that, I suppose. I think the one that actually has the named block in it is still the interview order block. I don't know what to call the other one.
The trigger block?
I'll just make a comment here. All right.
ID name, yeah. Okay.
I feel like maybe there's something more specific we can name it and trigger. It is the one that would go in the umbrella file, which is an idea. I'm not saying that's the right thing, I'm just brainstorming.
Sure. Controller? But it's very specifically a controller to like start that specific.
Yeah. We could call it a longer thing, which is like the trigger downloading. And what do we separate?
I thought it triggered the interview order, right?
Yep. It would trigger the interview order, and then it would trigger the download screen.
Okay.
Actually, it should do those two things probably, right?
Sure.
If you think about including that file in another file, you don't want to have the download screen triggered.
Well, or at least you want to be able to separate out those concepts.
And the signature is the same thing.
I like it.
Those three things would have to be in the umbrella thing and not in the interview order.
Yeah. So I would say trigger downloading is a bit misleading because it actually is triggering like several different things.
Umbrella, controller. So controller is a synonym we kind of had for interview order before we came up with interview order, which seems to have kind of stuck. I'm just trying to think about how to be specific. So we can just name what it is and think, can we summarize that in 3 words? Maybe that's the name of the block. What is the concept?
I mean, it's triggering the major, the things that need to be separated, that need to be called separately from, it's the 3 major like waypoints maybe of an interview, the ones that would need to be separated if you were, I'm just talking, so anybody can feel free to jump in. Like those are the ones that you need to stay decoupled.
We could call
Like-
this the interview order block, and we could call the other one the question order block.
Okay. I mean, okay, I could see that.
Because this is the
It's
actual.
gonna, yeah, I like that idea right now. Do I like that idea? Because the question order block doesn't just control questions, it also controls the setting of variables and stuff like that. But
Well, we could call it variable order block instead of question order block then.
okay, sure, yeah.
So something that does happen is like sometimes you want to put in interstitial screens on a really big interview, but that's not going to be the one you include in a different file. So like with the, when I did the affidavit of indigency, I had to take out some of the pieces that didn't make sense when it was included in another file and make, so there's like broken into 2 interview order blocks instead of just 1.
I mean, I think sometimes you'll have to make your own variable order block that picks and chooses questions and variable setting from from the things which you umbrella. And that's the variable order block in an interview, like in a single interview, this is how the order should happen if this is a single interview. And then if you're an umbrella interview, you choose your own variable order. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're right. So you're just saying like people are going to have to customize it anyway, so it's no big deal to add this task. I think that's fair. And it's not going to be a really common.
Sure.
As we come up with these new things, we have to keep in mind we're going to teach them to people in 2 weeks and 2 days as well.
Yeah.
And we can document them in that time. And I was hoping to bring some students into doing some of the teaching if they're available. They will need to become familiar with the concept too. So that makes our effective timeline for finishing them more like next week rather than 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay. I mean, if we want, we can change the deadline and give us 7 less days instead of 2 extra days. The other option is to, I mean, if we call the other one, if we call the new one the umbrella order doc, I mean, the umbrella order block or whatever, that might also express kind of the relationship a bit more explicitly.
So umbrella order and interview order.
Yeah, because the interview order is the order when that interview is run, right?
Yep.
Like that's the order in which the questions are asked.
But let's think about what we're pulling out here though, right? Because actually I realized we should also pull out the intro screen. You don't want to have people see the intro screen for a standalone interview when you're including it in a parent interview.
It's true.
So we have the intro screen is pulled out, the signature and preview, and the download pages are all pulled out. So I can see umbrella. That was, I think, that was close to what I had was my first idea too. But now talking it through and thinking of everything that we're going to take out of there feels more like this is the actual interview order.
Well,
Maybe.
I don't know if I've expressed. To me, the interview is the questions and when they're asked and stuff. Like if I'm thinking about what is interview versus, and to me, I'm thinking of the new block as being, this is what you will need to move into the umbrella if you are going to have an umbrella.
Well, it's actually what you will never use this in another file, actually. The umbrella part is the part you discard.
Okay. Okay, so this might be a like local, like it's only a trigger for like a single, for this interview as a single unit.
Yeah, actually, this would go into a file like standalone. That's what I would do if I was going to make
Standalone order?
Yeah.
Standalone order block. Gotta love names.
But that will confuse people when they're only using it as a standalone file, I think.
Well,
I think
I
umbrella.
don't know. I think it's worth trying. What?
I think umbrella is a fine name for it. Does anyone else have an idea? Well, whatever we
But if it
document
doesn't go
will be
in the
recorded for
umbrella,
posterity in 2 weeks.
yeah, yeah. I think if it doesn't move to the umbrella doc, then into the umbrella file, then I think umbrella is more confusing because it disappears when you create an umbrella, as opposed to
Nested multiple umbrellas. So
We should call it, what is the name for those Russian nested dolls?
oh no, that's babushkas. No,
Not
I think
babushka.
that's just grandma.
yeah, I think it's just grandma.
Oh, it's a grandma. Okay, sorry. Very wrong.
Well, that's what
I associate the hat with the grandma, the Russian grandma. So,
Oh, my Matryoshka.
That might be it.
Matryoshka. That's a bit much. I don't know if that would be an actual good name, but
it's not a name we should use, but it just triggered my thought about it. So did we kind of swing back to variable order and interview order? Interview order being the mandatory one and variable being better than question order?
It doesn't seem to me like, I don't know, I still feel that the interview order is the order of the questions. So like, I mean, when we had like a label
call
for
it?
standalone forms during the summer, people seem to know what standalone forms were. So like, I don't think the word standalone is confusing by itself. And I think there's a like, will this be instantly understandable? And will this be sticky once it's explained? And I do think standalone will be sticky once it's explained. If we can't have something that's instantly recognizable, I think it's better to have something that like will stick with someone.
My main discomfort there is with like the other training stuff that we have that talks about, hey, you have your interview order block. It's the mandatory block that controls the order of questions in your interview. And then if we make it not the mandatory block, that's the main sticking point for me. It's not maybe that big of a deal because it's really assuming people will run into this other documentation, which is only, I mean, it's something like I've said a lot. It's not like in the official DocAssemble documentation anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, we can say, I can make a page for documentation if you want, so that we can point people to it whenever they bring up the question. And hopefully, I mean, if we change it now, it's better than changing it a year from now. Like,
but let's say you do create a standalone interview, like we still would want to call that the interview order. So we just say like sometimes it's mandatory and sometimes it's not, I suppose. I guess that's, what about parent interview order block and interview order block? So they both use interview order in the concept.
what does parent mean in that? I mean, like, sure, I don't know. I don't know exactly, I'm not exactly clear on what parent means, so.
Well, I thought of it as like a more coding friendly concept, and if it doesn't make sense to you, then maybe let's just ignore that one.
I think, so I think it makes sense to me abstractly. I would be curious, I would be like, in what way is this a parent-child relationship? But I would understand that one was a basically umbrella for the other. So
it's another way to say umbrella, I suppose, too. But
parent is a coding, I don't know. Is it really mostly accessible to coders? I don't know.
yeah, well, if it didn't even resonate for you, then I don't think we should use it.
Okay.
So what are we calling the interview and what are we calling variables? So one thing is like the variables, DocAssemble really is variable driven. It's not interview driven unless you have interstitial screens, because these could all be provided by some other means. They don't have to be provided by. And in fact, if you're assembling a series of forms in a row, you're going to choose the variables such that they're not actually triggered. Doesn't trigger a question on the screen when you run them.
What about like something like macro interview order? or something that was like expressed it as a, I don't know.
Macro meaning big, but macro has a very distinct
Oh,
programming.
okay.
I know. That's why I started taking it back.
Okay.
or like meta interview order block, or like just something to say like this is a, like, I don't know. So I mean, if we wanted to keep interview order in there, I think it would be confusing to people who saw the other documentation, because they'd be like, these are both interview order blocks. I understand how you're saying that it is variable defined, and I hear that. I also partially, though, again, like when I think of interview order, I'm thinking of when each question is asked, what pages are appearing after what other pages. And that's what we currently call the interview order block. We can change it, and like, I don't know, like,
I mean, one thing
I don't
to
know.
think about is people will tend to not edit this bigger one too. They're going to mostly edit the other one. So
Yeah.
having the most convenient name for the second thing is important too. What was the other name we could think of besides interview order for the top level one? If we keep the internal one interview order, what would we call the other one potentially?
We said parent, we said meta, we said
I think meta gets confused.
umbrella order. We said,
I like just big interview order, or like larger interview order.
but it won't go into the, that's the thing, it won't go into the umbrella. That's what we were saying. It won't go into the umbrella. It's going, standalone was one.
Yeah.
So standalone interview order.
Maybe.
Or standalone order. Standalone order only makes sense because it's abbreviating standalone interview order.
That's true.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I think I spoke a few times, but I was mute. So
Oh, you were.
Oh,
sorry. I'm sorry. That's okay. That's okay.
Alright.
Do you have? I mean, I'm out of context, so I'm kind of in the air. Could you show the code? Just give a brief, like a scan of the code. What you're talking about? Where you want to make the changes?
So here's what we have now, Lily. We have this interview order block. So it's called the interview order block. It controls the order of questions, and then at the end, it sets a variable to true.
Okay, hold a second. Is this the current version that's in the
Correct.
masterpiece?
This is the current one.
Okay, so
And
I
then-
haven't seen this one. All right, so I need to look at it. Okay.
And then that named variable gets referenced here in the download screen, which is the only mandatory block right now.
Okay.
And we are going to change this so that this is no longer a mandatory block,
Okay.
and that this interview order block gets turned into two blocks, and the first one is mandatory, but the second one is not.
I think maybe if I can provide a little context for that thought, for that, the idea of that decision. So do you remember, were you around any times when we discussed an umbrella interview, Lily?
Yeah.
Or do you understand that idea of one interview that calls on a bunch of smaller interviews?
I do. I tried it myself.
Okay, so the way that the interview order block is set up right now, it's not mandatory, so that if there's a bigger interview, it requests the variable that's at the end of the smaller interview order to make sure, whatever. It's so that block doesn't get run when there is a bigger interview trying to use it. Right, so it doesn't just get all its variables automatically run in that same order. Some other interview somewhere else can use that interview, but can call the blocks in the order that it wants, call the variables. Does that make sense?
Okay, all right, let's pause here. So let's then step back. The original question was, in case someone wanted to run multiple interviews or call other interviews in their own interview, we are running into this situation. Now, the first question I have is that, do you actually ask the developer, do they have this need or not?
So we've had the need. It's come up for us. Do we ask the developer themselves? I think we need to create something that is flexible enough that we're not, because we want people to be able to take an interview later on and go, oh, okay, I want to use this in a bigger interview. I'll just switch around a few small things and then it'll work.
Okay, hold it. That's where I think in my view, I think we're trying to shoot a much bigger target than maybe in reality is the majority of the cases that we're handling. But at least to me, I think we should, if the developer at that point still doesn't know, he should go back, study the work he's doing, understand what is the outcome he's expecting, or do some more study. You know, in a way, I can understand that this tool, this Weaver tool, is to help people to get things done quickly. But that's to me, that's only half of the picture. The other half is so that they understand how this tool is best used. Or in other words, they need some understanding. They can't, if you just help them blindly get things done and walk away, I think.
So I actually see this as in line with that concept. What we're discussing now, I see this as a teaching moment where we have a thing that goes, hey, look, this is a hint about how you can do this later, and us making it an easy path. We're not like doing it for them because it's one interview. So it's going to run as one interview. We're not making them an umbrella interview, but we've separated it out so that when and if it happens, they can say, oh, I can just move this into a different file, and I can include this file, and then I can change around what's in here. So just like it gives you it just gives you a head start, a place to start, and opens your mind up to the idea that these blocks, they don't have to be just one monolithic block. This is a way you can use blocks.
I understand. Thank you. Now, so let me ask my question again.
Sorry, say that again.
Okay, I want to ask my question in a different way.
Okay, for sure.
In reality, based on the past experience, what's the percentage of the forms that have been created using this tool, which were multi-interviews? What's the percentage, roughly?
I think, like probably like every, so like, here's a good example. My students, almost all of them worked on these housing condition forms last year, because that was what Caroline had flagged as, hey, these are a bunch of forms that could get automated. Those don't make sense as one standalone interview. So those are all going to get combined into one parent one at some point. So it did come up with like the majority of forms that my students worked on last year.
Okay. All right. So that's why I want to understand the background. So then that's good. That actually answered my question. Then since it's the majority, then maybe you don't need to ask, you just provide.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good check for us to think about, to make sure, like, are we using a majority, something that's beneficial for everybody? But also, like, we're going to change this. That's my other philosophy on this. The current way is a little confusing. If we're going to change it, let's just change it the right way, even if it's for a not too common use case.
It also, I think there is a balance of like, how rare is it? And also how difficult would it be to convert it if the situation did come up? I think both pieces of that are important.
Yeah, I think that's true too.
I agree. So now my second question. do you actually want to bring this point to the developer's attention? In other words, in the process of running the Weaver, is there anywhere that actually give them a hint that the package in the end they get, or the interview they get, actually will allow them to combine other interviews in it?
I do think at some point, yes, but I don't think we're going to do it by saying, do you want this to be included in other interviews?
No, I'm not saying as a question, but I'm just saying, is there any context so that they are aware of it?
No, I think I'm okay with that for now. I think that's a great issue for us to put in future. And if you want to open it up, Lily, I think that's a great idea. So there's two sides to it from my point of view. One is we do already have an issue set that says, let someone say, I want to include the affidavit of indigency, or I want to include the interpreter request. That's already an issue that I have open. What I don't have is prepare this interview so it can be included in another interview, which is maybe a good idea to do. We do have an issue that says upload 5 documents at once and turn them into one interview, which is, I think, something we should work on too. I see that as a future goal. It doesn't have to actually, like, our whole thing's about the assembly line. So yes, that helps you synchronize variable names and avoid repetition, but actually it's kind of nice that you run one form through the wizard and then you combine them. That's like a nicer flow for multiple people to work on something. So I'm not sure. Anyway, separate question, but let's make that issue and to track it as a future goal. I see it as something where now we can lay the groundwork in the code and documentation. Later, we can expose an interface for it in the wizard. And it can happen at a different time to me.
Okay, another question is, now let's say I have a form. I need to include other interviews. Do you see some standard interviews that most people would need, or they are just random?
They are standard. So I think that is one of the ones I just mentioned, the affidavit of indigency and the interpreter notice. Those are 2 standalone forms we should generate each time.
Okay, so.
Or that we should make optional available, at least.
Okay, so if that's the case, is it in your mind that you also want to give the flexibility that people can include other interview that's not provided by the Weaver?
I'm not sure about that part yet. So I'm okay with postponing that discussion. I'm just thinking, like, before we get people to generate a bunch more interviews, let's get the code that comes out right. That's where I'm focusing now is UX we can improve over time. There's some UX things that are high priority. But if the code is wrong, then they have that wrong choice forever, probably, right? Unless they decided to rerun it through the wizard.
Okay. So let me summarize my understanding at this point. You're trying to modify the code so that it will handle multi-interviews, which actually include, let's say, 2 standard other interviews in any form that you process through the Weaver. Is that the case?
It's to make it so that your form could be included in another interview, which actually our current design does, but we are trying to make the code more readable.
And more easily transformable.
It's already
more transformable, yeah, because actually breaking these other points out is more substantive than just.
It's already doing it as of when, because I worked the most part on the version of December, so I don't remember I saw this part. That's why.
Well, all you do is you take out this mandatory block.
Okay.
And then it's editable. You know, you can include it in a different interview after you've done that.
Right. So that's the download part. Where is the multi-interview part?
So
once you've commented
that's the
that-
file that is not in here, because we're talking about a file that is made to be included in something else. This is not a file that includes other things. That's a conversation, but that's a different conversation, which I think you brought up a lot of good issues that should have conversations, but we don't want to mix up the conversations at the moment, I think.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
understand what this conversation is about.
Yeah.
I'll open an issue for that now. I mean, I'm still, okay, I think we should wrap up the discussion about the name now, but I think I'm most comfortable with umbrella order after we've talked everything through. Does anybody have any your thoughts about that? It's a little confusing. They're all trade-offs. But I want Michelle to have direction when she works on this.
Yeah, I do need a name.
And we need it for the documentation and for the training, right?
Mhm.
We could call it standalone is the other, those are the two contenders that make the most sense to me, but
The only thing I had that I don't think we mentioned before was like, which maybe programs and like sort of like programming centric, but it was like main, just literally main, or like main order block, which is different than the interview order block because you're still asking the interview questions, but this is just like the main, the entire thing. And so if you're coming from programming, then you'll recognize it immediately. If you're not, I don't feel like it's too difficult to pick up. It is, Michelle was talking about it being sticky. I'm not sure how sticky it is, but that's my only other thing. I would also be fine with umbrella order block probably.
We could say for standalone interview. I hear the main. Sorry, my brain was still on the old track at the same time. Yeah, I mean main is not a big thing in JavaScript really. I mean it's more like index.html and there's no like if main whatever. Like if your name is main or something, that's kind of a Python script. But I mean I think
the C thing.
I think that it does. I'm not sure it's sticky, but it does express the concept that this is kind of overarching. So I don't know. It doesn't feel as explanatory to me as standalone, right? But it could. But whatever we decide on, I'm happy to go with it. I just had the thought of calling it for standalone interview or something like that. What?
At the end, tagging it with for standalone.
Like the ID being for standalone. Like it doesn't have to be a noun, right?
True.
So we do prefix it. I've ran into like one bug. It's not like a common thing, but sometimes there are bugs with reusing IDs.
Mm-hmm.
It actually made me wonder if I just had a change where I made the ID download screen consistent on every interview, and maybe I shouldn't have done that.
Wow.
You would want to have the name of the form as part of this. So we had hello world 2 for standalone.
Oh, if it was Hello World standalone, then that would be, I think, fine. You don't need the for. Or it could be for Hello World 2 standalone. It could also be that. The for would have to go at the beginning if it was anywhere, I think, or it doesn't really make as much sense to me, but you can, if that makes sense to other people, I don't know.
I like main order because I think main is in my past life I have used this all the time. So main does make sense to me. Umbrella, I'm a little
doesn't carry the baggage of standalone or umbrella, which both were like slightly off to me. So yeah, I'm for that one too. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off to agree with you, Lily. That was rude.
okay.
Is that, and it feels like that's okay to you, Michelle?
I'm happy to go with whatever folks decide. Yeah. I don't need to be in love. All
right, so let's go with main order block for the new thing. The old thing is still going to be interview order block.
All right.
Great, we did it. We named the thing. let's go through and see if we can figure out any other issues that can get people assigned to them. Lily, are you kind of stuck on this download thing with the new zip? Do you want me to help with that? I don't want to take over it, but I also think that might be the only real way to move forward with it, is to make a standalone zip file, not using the playground package that's existing. It's too different a task, I think.
It depends on what's your purpose. To me, the purpose is not to download. The purpose is to upload, so that it's easier for the developer when they work on their.
Yeah, it's not downloading it. You're right. It's uploading it to a new playground. That's
right. So I have tried different ways. I think I even tried the standard Python. Forget about the DA. And nothing worked. So it seems like either we allow people to log in so we can use the DA package, or we will need to mimic what Jonathan has done in server.py or something. Set up whatever. I forget.
I have a quick question on kind of the literal use of how it would be used. Because right now you go onto the Suffolk Lit Labs server and you create this. And it sounds to me like you'd only be able to upload it to the Suffolk Lit Labs server. Like you wouldn't be, as a user on the Suffolk Lit Labs server, you could upload it to the thing Lily is describing where you're like uploading it there. I just wanted to check in if that was correct or if it would be uploadable to other servers.
I think you can upload it to anywhere.
Okay, perfect.
If we're making a zip file, it can be uploaded anywhere.
Yeah.
So that's the question, is like, I mean, that made me think, should we just skip downloading a package and make a GitHub repo for somebody as an option?
Well, also not everybody does have, they should, but not everybody does have GitHub repos, but we could decide that it's for people who have GitHub repos.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I guess the zip file is most flexible. The GitHub is a nice add-in. We have a milestone for that already. But I like the idea of, like, so first of all, like, we want people to be able to download the PDF and the YAML file in one go, because we've worked around it for now, but it would be nice to get this resolved, I think.
Don't they already have the PDF file?
Yep, but to go through and go to the two different parts of the playground to upload your files, it's not a big deal, but it is an extra step. And one of the issues that was really closely tied to this, Lily's been working on, is making a next steps template that uses our style. So everybody starts with a cover page for their user that tells them what to do with the document. Like, that's actually something where all of our forms have been falling down. It's like a really important step, actually, for people to be able to really use the form in real life.
Yeah, all of those the only problem we have at this point is
the zip file
thing. Yeah. Which, as I said, either we allow people to log in to the Weaver, or we mimic Jonathan's code in a Python file.
Well,
So,
I think I have a good sense of how to take that part on, Lily, because I've worked with files.
Then if you can do it, that'd be wonderful.
Okay.
So we have a branch there. You can just work on that one then.
Okay. All right. So why don't I do that part, just making the downloadable zip, and we still want to work on the next steps document, which would be tied in. It would make use of this feature when it's done. Okay, just going quickly through attorney BBO. That's a very small issue. It's just adding a new reserved keyword. And
is there a question for it? I think there is, right?
There might be.
If there is a question, I'd be willing to do this. If there's not a question, I would prefer someone else who knows a bit more about numbers.
If there isn't a question, I could try writing a question. I'm not a lawyer person though.
We should have some examples though. So if you just scan across our repositories, I
Sure.
still have to look it up every
Is
time.
this also
There is a way
worth
to
it?
search. Go
I
ahead.
guess this can still be in the wizard, but like, this is BBO is Massachusetts specific, right? Like each state has generally its own attorney
Oh,
like,
does it?
number like this.
Some states don't. So like New York, where I went to law school, that's not like something people have. There's no.
At all. Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe
There
this
might be,
is
but no one knows what it is. Like you don't write it on all of your pleadings like you do in Massachusetts.
Okay.
maybe this is a Massachusetts specific question.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Like, I'm wondering if we can make it vague enough that it's like would work in other jurisdictions, or if it's too specific and it should just be a Massachusetts specific thing.
It's a good question. I mean, I'm okay with having some Massachusetts specific concepts that are in the wizard, just because like our goal first and foremost is to automate our stuff.
Yes, yeah.
Sure.
But at
But
least all the defaults are like Massachusetts specific, and people can edit them. We just have to note that they are I guess people will realize that they're Massachusetts specific when they come across them. They'll be like, I don't know what this is, and I don't.
It may be good
So,
to write in them that it's Massachusetts specific, but yeah.
Yeah.
so this probably the question should go in the mass access, but we shouldn't generate in the wizard if it's not handled in the generic package. I mean, there's some other terms that are like that though. Like I think I gave the example of guardian ad litem is not the term in every state. It's in a lot of states, but it's not all of them. BBO, I think, is only Massachusetts.
Mhm.
It's not quite as generic. But this is just something I think everyone tends to need.
Yeah.
And we do want it to be tied to the user as an attribute. And when we tried doing arbitrary attributes, it really caused a lot of problems. So I don't see another good way to get to this other than having it be handled in the wizard. That's just
Yeah. No, I feel like it should still be handled in the wizard, but maybe. Yeah, I guess the only other way around it is just arbitrary attributes, like you mentioned. I think it's fine as long as we can sort of like, just make sure that we're flagging it as very Massachusetts specific and more of have like a more in-depth way of changing. I was gonna say like if you need like instead of just having a more in-depth way of changing like the defaults that we have, you might for your state you might need to change BBO from like BBO to some other whatever your state uses, and just have maybe just have some documentation on how to get that. But I feel like it's fine to keep it in the wizard for now.
I had like a big picture blue sky idea later, which is like we want people to be able to choose from which package they're including for which state, which organization, whatever. So maybe we should in that package also have a file, which is like, here are the generator constants that you want to use and have that be tied to the wizard. So it pulls live from whatever package you're using.
Sounds like the right way of doing this.
Yeah.
I don't know if other people have thoughts, but
Yep.
like at least on top of like whatever other ways we want people to add reserved words for specific organizations and stuff. Might just have some automated, so good defaults.
Okay, so that might not be the right place to put all those details, but I think it's okay for now. So I'm gonna link that here. Okay, and then it sounds like Bryce, you can take that on with that division. Michelle, you wanted to write this question.
Sure. I mean, I could just do both, but yeah. I don't know. I'll just let you know when I've done it, Bryce. And then we can...
I think we're going over again. I hope that's okay with people.
I'm so surprised.
There's a lot of value in having meetings with prescribed time limits, but
Agreed.
Just need it.
But maybe this meeting's prescribed time limit is 2 hours, but I know people don't like that thought.
It is too long to have a blocked out meeting every week. But
Now
it's-
in 45 minutes.
Okay, oh, this is the issue I was talking about that I think is related to one price you're already taking on. I'm just gonna flag this like,
Yeah.
this is just one concept. There is to generate in review screens. Summarize questions instead of fields. Do you still need a way? So, okay, so like one idea you were maybe hinting at that is if we've pre-canned the way to do a review screen for someone's name, we can just insert that in. But it will get a little bit messy if we're doing that review screen for like 30 built-in fields. So picking and choosing which parts to do it is something that would take some work. But we won't go into that now, but I think we'll just see. That seems like a low priority task to me, but it does seem like one we could start thinking about now.
Yeah.
It does. I mean, people can like edit the review screens. So
Or
like
just-
they can figure it out. Like,
They tend to get a little bit out of date no matter what. But,
yeah.
Mhm.
but having the model, I think, has been helpful for people, even if they don't use it.
100% completely.
I'm going to take this one here because it relates to something I'm already planning to do, which I think I have some code for that has started. Lily, since I'm taking away the zip code one, not zip code, but the zip file download thing, do you want to take this one?
What is it? I don't understand.
I know it's a little abstract, but I think it's straightforward. It's like fairly well prescribed. So you can look at it and see what you think. The issue is we currently we have a list of categories, right? Like, so let me go back to the screens here. And we want to turn these categories into the categories at taxonomy.legal and use those codes, store those codes in the file. So we would want to have people check off from this categories, it would say public benefits, and then in the file, it would insert BE000000. That would be the first pass at this, is just replacing this list of categories with this list of categories and inserting the code rather than the name into the file.
I mean the variable name.
Yeah, well, I don't
Or
know what to
variable
call it exactly.
value.
The taxonomy lookup code.
Right. So behind the house, is there like a variable name? Then I can change that as B000. Is that the concept?
Let's see. So yeah, I mean, it would be like housing and then colon,
Yeah, then I that variable.
whatever the
Okay.
number is here, HO000. Yeah, so that was how you would do it. Just change these to match would be the first great pass. And then, so first, actually, I can just make that a checklist.
Is there some other part of our system or the mass access system that we'll want to like also update to this change so that it is showing people the right results and stuff? Like, is this linked to how like what pages the forms are put into on mass access?
This is laying the groundwork for that a bit. So I
Okay.
think the one thing that is a relevant concept is docassemble does scan an interview file and it uses the metadata tags
Mhm.
you can access those via the API. So that's where we should get to really soon.
Okay.
We have
Which one should it be? Or both, I guess.
me v2 is the old name for list.
Okay.
The same. I'm going to just try to link to that.
So it should be called
Understand
list
deeply.
in the metadata.
Okay. So the first step here, like just changing those category names to match, that'll be huge. Second thing is putting the tag into the metadata block. That's a little more tricky.
Of all the values that I changed, but what is it?
Say it again.
Put which tags are the ones that I changed in the step 1?
So I believe metadata is a block. And so like
This
this
is
would
what it
be in the metadata block as a tag.
And
Like
there
I
is a
think a tag,
metadata-
I think tag is a specifier in the metadata block that you can add words to or numbers to or whatever, strings to.
Exactly.
So are you saying just add the category into the as a tag, or what is it?
So you do specifier tags and then a list of the numbers that align with the category, I believe.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Then people can access that via API. So we'll be able to see what those are dynamically.
We should add that to the old ones too. That would be great.
Yeah.
I mean, not now, I know.
This
I'm
will
just
be,
excited.
I think, really nice to move forward. Like this came up a couple times. Margaret Hagen's working on different ways to get people to tag stuff with that taxonomy. And this was easy lift for us to do. Our list
should
of
give it-
categories is not that different from what's Disney.
We should give her a little shout when we've got this implemented and be like, see, we're doing it, just so she, because if she's working hard on this, then it's worth letting her know that it's working, right? The word is getting out.
Yeah, I mean, so I will say, like, David has been part of that project too. So we don't want to say like, hey,
Oh, okay. Did not know that.
different
All right,
pieces of it.
sounds good.
That's where the issue spotter API was built to work with list, and there was some collaboration there.
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
Actually, Suffolk and Stanford were on the same grant to do that work. All right, so fields need more metadata to help generate review screens. This is totally redundant. Or did I just not refresh the assignment? It's not on there yet. This is exactly the thing we just talked about, isn't it? It's a duplicate.
That's the same thing I think we did. I'm confused, yeah.
Like it's the same thing or it's a duplicate
Is
thing?
it the actual issue or is it? Oh, I just never assigned you to it.
Yeah.
Or maybe I unassigned it somehow. I don't know. Either way, it's not a duplicate. It's the same. It's literally the same issue. Okay.
Life is chaos.
Again, move magic code out of basic questions. This is a great but very vague concept. Is number 99 the one we already closed? Yeah, so it was really just about interview short title. Okay, so I made this issue many, many times apparently.
I've done that before. I continue to do it.
Let's keep it open since otherwise I'll make it another time.
I chased down a bug that was not a bug. I mean, multiple times is what I'm saying. I made an issue multiple times for a bug that wasn't a bug that I found wasn't a bug and forgot wasn't a bug, and we made an issue and it still wasn't a bug. So there you go.
So, okay, this I think we're going to use. This was actually, now we have it's not about reserved keywords at all. It's just about changing the attachment block format.
Yeah.
So I think it would be nice to format them with the thousands function as a default. People might not always want that, but
this was about decimals.
Right.
Okay.
It does that. It limits it to 2 decimal places without adding currency automatically.
Okay. So it shouldn't have, nothing should have decimal places?
The thousands function leaves 2 decimal places. It doesn't add a currency symbol, unlike the currency function.
But we shouldn't change everything to have decimal symbols, right? Like there aren't a lot of numbers that would have decimals.
think when people are putting in numbers in a document in a PDF, it's usually currency, to be honest.
Okay.
If it's an integer number, that I don't really know where it asks for an integer number very often. Maybe if it says like
Okay.
number of household members, but you might be better off writing it out. Not sure. It's a good thing. Good point. We don't want to make people have decimals if we can start out with decimals. But then we don't even run it through a function. There's no need to use this. Does anyone want to do this? This is again a very small change to the attachment block. Only matters for PDFs. We won't have that control over docx files.
I can't instantly see how to do it. So, I mean,
Okay.
like,
I could take them.
So I'm not sure how important it is to do now, but okay. Bryce,
I
I
mean,
mean,
we could move
I'll
it to the
leave it
next
low.
milestone.
Yeah,
No,
we could push it back. I could also just try and remember it's low priority for this one and do it last.
Yeah. Okay. You want me to put low priority on it as a tag without removing the milestone?
That would be fine. Yeah. Do we have a low priority tag?
We don't.
Okay.
It was the tone. It was just perfect tone of voice. That's all. Following the whole sequence was great.
I'm going to move this one to future. It's an important goal, but actually at the beginning of our boot camp, nobody will know how to do this. So there's not much point in making people. Yeah, I'm just going to move that to the future. All right, we've triaged everything. We have negative 20 minutes left. Michelle, do you want to talk about the email?
Email? Oh,
That's
not
really
even a
bad,
little.
but
Not even a little.
You don't want to? Okay.
No. At negative 20 minutes? No, no thank you. I'm all right.
Go all the way up to negative 30 if we want.
Yeah, I hear you.
All right. Okay, then we're good. Let's check in tomorrow. And look, we're 13% complete from 0. We did actually, we made some.
Yeah.
We closed
Made
2
some
duplicates, I
progress.
think.
It's still 13%.
This was hard work. Triaging is
With
important.
fewer issues.
Project management piece. And everything is
Okay.
assigned to somebody, okay?
Yeah,
Great.
just
All right, well, let's keep on working, guys. Let's see if we can do a two for 2 milestones that we hit right on time.
Yeah, Bryce, if
Try
you
quick.
want to spread those out a bit, there might be some of those that I can take. I know just there were a lot of those in there for you. So
Gotcha. Yeah, no, they're not too many, and a lot of them
Okay.
do seem to be at least touching the same parts of the code, so it
perfect.
shouldn't be too hard to hop around.
And also don't forget, Michelle, like having the documentation is like another really key part of our milestone. I know you've been working on that too.
That's true. I want to understand priority. Like I want a freaking priority list. That's like what, but whatever. David and I will talk about it. It'll be separate. I just don't know where everything fits in the like scheme of things.
Fair. I would say like this should give you a good sense of the priority features.
Mhm.
Those also seem to map onto like the priority documentation, right?
Mhm.
When we check in tomorrow about the boot camp,
Mhm.
and what we're going to cover, like all of those should have documentation by the week we cover them.
Okay.
Which also means they don't have to all be done before the boot camp starts. So
Yeah. I'll be able to see which ones are coming up first. It'll
okay.
be good.
All right. Well, see everybody. Bryce, I'll see you later. But everyone else, I'll see you tomorrow.
Sounds good. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.